Wednesday, the 14th of July. Can you believe we're in the middle of July already? I just don't know where the time's going. Anyway, for today's short reflection, I want you to think of what do you go on about? Or what do you go on and on about? Well, I have a couple of things, positive and negative. One of the things I go on about quite often, and I know that's going to change depending on where you are in life and what stage of life you're at and what's happening in the world around you. But at the moment, one of my things that I go on and on about are food banks or food programs. Now, I definitely know the need for them. I can see the need. I support the food banks and the food projects that run. However, where's that going to lead to? That's probably what I go on about. Not so much about the food banks themselves, but where does that lead to? So, for example, it may help people in the interim when things have become quite difficult for them. But what if they're just going to live the rest of their lives like that? Or what if their children learn from them just to live by getting handouts all the time? For me, it's about the education of people who use the food banks and use food projects and get free meals or whatever. I'm not against it. I'm really, really not. But how are people going to learn how to budget if they're not taught that? If they've not been educated in how to budget? So, for example, years ago, one of my family members had envelopes, and when they were paid in cash, they got their money, and then they put X amount in each of the envelopes for those weekly bills. And then, I just can't stress enough that unless we educate people on how to budget or how to buy food that will extend and last longer. So, for example, many of you or your parents will have made meals from practically nothing. You've not had much in your cupboard at the end of the week before payday comes, and you can rattle together something. Even to this day, I'm sure you could still do that. But if you've never been taught that, and you've never been educated in how to budget your money, then how are you ever going to learn to do these things? So that's probably one of my things that I go on and on about. Many years ago, my sister said to me that I was spending far too much money on my shopping bill. And I admit, I do spend a lot of money on my shopping bill, but that's because I shop mostly in Marks and Spencer's. However, she said to me that she could do my shopping with me, so do what I liked, but she would manage to get my shopping bill down quite considerably. And believe it or not, she did. She went out with me and I told her the things that we would normally eat and what we like, and she did the shopping, and my bill was just about halved. It really was. But that still meant that I could do a bit of shopping in Marks and Spencer's within that budget that she had set. So there's ways to do it. And that's something else I'll wax lyrical about, isn't it? Marks and Spencer's. I love it. Home from home. And of course, it's mostly the food hall. Can't really say much about their clothes these days, but certainly there's food. And their furniture as well. Their homeware department's good. So that's something else I could go on and on about as well. But something else that I go on about, I'm told, is the folks from Glasgow. And I'm a Glasgow lass, of course. And if you were to meet someone at the bus stop in Glasgow, and the people you met were from Glasgow, I'm telling you, you would have their life story in about 30 seconds. Out it comes. Gift of the gab. That's the folk from Glasgow. I know we can get it elsewhere, but I go on about the people from Glasgow. They would give you the shirt off their back if that's what you needed. They would give you their last bowl of sugar if that was what you needed. They would do without to help others. But there again, there's lots of people like that. But I'm just going on about the people from Glasgow. Somebody was telling me that they visited Glasgow once, just as part of a wee holiday, and they got a bit lost in the city centre. So this gentleman saw that they were looking at their map and things, And he said, can I help you? And they said, oh, we're trying to get to wherever. And he said to them, all right, well, you just go up the road there and you turn here. And oh, he said, never mind. Come on, I'll show you where to go. And he took them right to where they needed to go. I mean, yeah, that's just people in Glasgow for you. They really are. I think one of the things I love about Glasgow, but also many of you, I'm told, and you've told me, like about Glasgow, is the Glasgow banter. Oh yes, the Glasgow banter. I know when some of my family come up from the Glasgow area, many of you enjoy talking to them and just hearing as I said, that Glasgow banter and what's been said and how it's said and the dialect and everything. But for me, the one person that I can go on about quite often is my uncle. Now, my uncle's not much older than I am. However, he trained as an ambulanceman and then, of course, in later years, became a paramedic. And he is so good at telling stories. And of course, it's done with a Glasgow accent and a lot of Glasgow banter put in there as well. I'm going to give you just two of his short stories because I think they're hilarious. And every time I even think about them, you can see me start to smile already. So it was one of the first call outs he had as an ambulance driver. And you're always told, he said that you're always told that you have to clear the area of any debris that gets in the way. So they were called out to an accident. A gentleman had been knocked down by a bus and the gentleman was still under the bus. Now, fortunately, it wasn't, he wasn't seriously injured, but he was trapped under there. So they arrive on the scene and my uncle crawls in under the bus to make sure that the gentleman is okay and what's needed and whatever. And of course, he was moving stuff out the way, a bag and various other things. And the gentleman said to him, don't worry about this leg. He said, that's a prosthetic leg. So my uncle, Julie, he duly unbuckled the prosthetic leg and he threw it out from under the bus into the street. And then when that happened, there was a woman at the bus stop who saw this leg getting thrown out. So she fainted, and as she fainted, hit her head as she went down. So they had to call another ambulance. I mean, really, you couldn't write that, could you? He did get into trouble for it, I must admit, he did, but it was the way he was telling it. It was just hilarious. It wasn't a hilarious situation, but it really was funny. All's well that ends well, because everybody was fine. One of the other stories he was telling me was that he was driving the ambulance with his colleague beside him, and they were travelling with a Danish paramedic who was over here seeing what Glasgow's like at a weekend or a Friday and Saturday night. And as they were driving along the road, this Danish paramedic said to my uncle, can you tell me where these famous Red Road flats are? And of course, I'm sure many of you will have heard of the Red Road flats in Glasgow. But fortunately, as they were driving along, my uncle said to him, oh, they're there, and pointed up and showed him where they were. Well, at this, the Danish paramedic started laughing. He couldn't stop laughing. And of course, my uncle and his partner were looking at each other thinking, what's going on here? I mean, what's funny about that? When the Danish gentleman had calmed down, he said to my uncle, you've just used the same word 3 times to describe something. There. I must admit, the way he told the story, I was doubled over. It was just so funny. So, the Glasgow banter, I do like that. The other thing that I go on about, I don't now, but when I first came to Forfar, many of you will recall my famous saying, it's Baltic in here, or it's Baltic here. Billy and I really struggled with the cold easterly winds when we first moved to Forfar. And that was my favourite saying, especially, well, I'm not even going to say in winter, because it felt sometimes it was the whole year round. We go, oh, it's Baltic in here. The other thing that I mention often when I go on and on about it, and when I do start on it, is people who think they know about the Bible and who think they know about the church. And truthfully, they're pretty clueless about it. They really are. Because I've heard people say, people who go to church are nothing but hypocrites. They say one thing and maybe do another. Well, do you know what? None of us are perfect. We all have flaws, we all have faults, we all do things wrong in life. We're no different from anybody else out in the street. But our faith, we learn what we should be doing. We can apologise when we do something wrong. Well, I hope we can. So we're no different. Just because we go to church doesn't mean to say we're going to live a life that it is absolutely faultless, because that is impossible. But we know the road we should be going down and who to follow. They also say things like the Bible contradicts itself. Well, of course it does, because it's been written by different people for different communities. So if I was to write a book about Forfar, and a Forfar person wrote a book about Forfar, well, I can assure you they would be completely different. Well, not completely, there would be similarities, but there would be a completely different emphasis and bits in each of them. So naturally, when somebody read them, they would think, oh, these two books maybe contradict each other. But, you know, people who don't know the Bible don't even realise some of these things. They also say the Bible is full of violence. Well, yeah, it is full of violence, because in the Old Testament, it was all about God making known who he was and getting people to follow him and not worship idols or various other things. It's about learning about who God was and how to form a faith community. And then, of course, when we came into the New Testament, well, of course, it was just people didn't like Jesus. They didn't like what he stood for, didn't like the fact he was changing things. Well, that happens today, doesn't it? People also say the Bible's description of nature and natural history are hopelessly at odds with science. I don't think so. I think they can go hand in hand quite easily, because, you know, the world was created in 6 days and God rested on the seventh. Do I really believe that the world was created in 6 days? No. You know, but my faith gets me over all of this. The fact that, you know, for all I know, a day could have been 1,000,000 years. I don't know, but my faith gets me over these hurdles. The Bible was written by ancient and primitive people and has no value to the modern people anymore. How wrong can that be? I mean, really? There is so much in the Bible that we can relate absolutely to today. I mean, the list is endless. And I would invite people to come and hear about why we can relate all of the stuff in the old days to exactly what's still going on today. And the last one I hear quite often is Christians can't even agree on what the Bible's saying, so who cares if it's true or not? We all have different views on everything. Absolutely everything. There is different views on that. But again, as people of faith, we do look at that. We do discuss that. And it's our own culture and it's our own free will that help to let us choose what we believe and what we don't. But come along to church, find out more. So that's another hobby horse of mine. I do go on and on about people who say, you know, these kind of things about church life. Now, the reason I'm mentioning about going on and on and on, well, did you watch Euro 2020? Did you watch the build-up to the finals? I was sick of it. Absolutely sick of it. I mean, the England team seemed a very, very good team to me, you know, and I really did hope that they would do well in the final. However, the press and the television, they went on and on and on and on, and I can't tell you how many ons I want to add on to that. And it just made you absolutely sick to the back teeth of it all. I mean, visiting all the schools of the players. Here we go in 1966 again. And come on, how many years ago was that? Enough is enough, folks. Yeah, let's have a build up to it. But don't go on and on about it. That's what puts people really, really off. It really, well, put me right off, that's for sure. Another thing that the press go on and on and on and on and on about, it was Tim Henman. And then it became Andy Murray. I mean, really, let them just go on and do their jobs. Yeah, a little bit of a build-up, but you don't need to go on and on and on about it. It really does get people's backs up. And the same can be said for people who are Bible bashers or Bible thumpers. People who have walk about with the sandwich boards with the Bible verse written on the front and the back, and or especially the people who stand in the street and hold up their Bible and repent, the time is near, all that jazz, and yeah, they holler and holler about God, about what's going on. I would love to go on and on and on about the great things that I see in God, in Jesus and the Holy Spirit and in our lives of faith. But people would get fed up listening to me going on and on and on about it. Probably you're fed up listening to this talk already because I've been going on and on and on about it. But I don't believe that is the way to attract people to a life of faith, to come to church and see what happens there. I believe that coming to church is about worshipping God as a community and doing God's work in the community and, of course, further afield. So if we just go on living our life of faith, if we put our words into actions and we pass on to others the benefits in our life of what it means to be a person of faith, then we just need to leave the rest up to God. Have a great week, folks. God bless.